Imagine this. You're Daniel Carter, and you haven't eaten properly in 2 days. Your legs ache, your stomach burns, and the cold has settled deep into your bones. Then finally, you see it. A low wooden building glowing with firelight, voices inside, laughter, movement, life. You step through the door, and for the first time all day, you feel safe. Someone gestures you in, a woman brings you a bowl, thick stew, fresh bread, a full mug of ale. It smells rich, warm, comforting. You don't question it. You don't hesitate. You take a bite. And for a moment, everything feels fine. But then something shifts. Your stomach tightens, your head grows light, the edges of the room blur just slightly. You tell yourself it's nothing. You're just tired. But it isn't nothing. Because what you've just eaten isn't just food. It's something your body was never meant to handle. And in the 1100s, meals like this weren't rare accidents. They were daily life. People ate this every single day, not knowing it could poison them, infect them, or slowly destroy their bodies from the inside out. So the question isn't just why they ate it. The real question is, if you were sitting there in Daniel Carter's place, eating that same meal, would your body survive it? Daniel doesn't know it yet, but the danger didn't start with the stew. It started long before he walked through that door, in the fields where the grain was grown, in the water that fed the crops, and in the way people understood food itself. Because in medieval England, food wasn't about safety. It was about survival. Hunger was constant, and anything that could fill your stomach was considered a gift. That ale in his hand, thick and cloudy, wasn't just a drink. It was a lifeline. Water couldn't be trusted. It carried disease, waste, and everything people didn't understand. So instead, everyone drank ale. Men, women, even children. Every single day, and not in small amounts. A gallon per person was common. Imagine that. Every day, your body depending on something made in conditions you would never accept now. And Daniel, coming from a world where food is regulated, cleaned, tested, has no idea what he's exposing himself to. He takes another sip. It tastes strange, heavier than anything he remembers. Slightly sour, slightly sweet, but off in a way he can't explain. That's because this isn't modern beer. There are no controlled ingredients, no consistent process. The woman who made it, like most brewers of the time, learned through repetition, not science. Barrels weren't sterilized. Water wasn't purified. Fermentation wasn't fully understood. Sometimes the ale turned quickly, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes it carried things you couldn't see. And when it did, there was no warning. People drank it anyway, because they had no choice. But Daniel does have a choice, at least in theory. His body hasn't spent years adapting to this. His immune system isn't used to constant exposure. So what was normal for them becomes dangerous for him. Across the room, people are eating the same meal without hesitation. They laugh, they talk, they drink. To them, this is comfort, routine. But Daniel's body is reacting differently. His stomach churns again, sharper this time. He reaches for the bread, thinking it might settle him. It's dense, darker than he expected, slightly bitter. What he doesn't know is that bread in this time wasn't always safe. Grain was stored in damp conditions, exposed to the elements, vulnerable to contamination. And one of the most dangerous threats hiding in that grain was a fungus. It didn't look dramatic. It didn't announce itself. But once it entered the food supply, it spread silently. People ate it without realizing what it could do. Daniel tears off another piece and swallows. Around him, nothing seems out of place. But inside his body, something is beginning to build. Because that fungus, if it's present, doesn't just cause mild sickness. It can trigger something far worse. In some cases, it affects the nervous system, leading to confusion, muscle spasms, even hallucinations. In others, it cuts off blood flow to the extremities, slowly damaging fingers, toes, entire limbs. People in the Middle Ages didn't understand this. They gave it a name, they tried to make sense of it, but they didn't know where it came from. Entire communities suffered, and no one could explain why. Daniel shifts in his seat. The warmth that once felt comforting now feels heavy. The air is thick, filled with smells that are harder to ignore now. Smoke, sweat, animals, all mixing together in a space far smaller than he expected. This isn't just a tavern. It's someone's home. The same place where food is prepared, where people sleep, where animals are kept. Everything exists in one room, and everything shares the same air. In a world without sanitation, without separation, Contamination isn't an exception. It's constant. Every surface, every tool, every ingredient carries something. He looks back at his meal. The stew, the bread, the ale. Each one seemed harmless on its own. But together, they form something far more unpredictable. And that's the reality of eating in a medieval alehouse. It wasn't one ingredient that made it dangerous. It was everything working together. The water used to cook, the grain used to bake, the environment it was prepared in. Every step added another layer of risk. And yet, people survived. Not because the system was safe, but because their bodies adapted over time. Exposure became normal. Illness became expected. Daniel didn't grow up with that. His body reacts faster, stronger. The discomfort spreads. His vision feels slightly off, like the room is shifting when he's not looking directly at it. He blinks, tries to focus. Across the table, someone laughs loudly, slamming their mug down. For them, this is just another night. For him, it's becoming something else. Because what he's experiencing isn't just food poisoning in the way we think of it today. It's a combination of reactions, some immediate, some building slowly beneath the surface. And here's where it becomes even more unsettling. Because even if Daniel manages to leave that alehouse, even if he finds fresh air, rests, and recovers from the immediate effects, the story doesn't necessarily end there. Some of what he's consumed doesn't leave quickly. Toxins can linger. Damage can continue. In the medieval world, people didn't connect meals to long-term illness. They couldn't. The knowledge wasn't there. But the consequences were. Bodies weakened over time. Teeth wore down from grit in the flour. Nutritional deficiencies developed from limited diets. And still, life went on. Daniel grips the edge of the table. The initial hunger that brought him here is gone, replaced by a growing sense of unease. And this is the moment where the illusion breaks completely. Because what felt like safety at the beginning, warmth, food, shelter, is revealed for what it really is. A place of necessity, not comfort. A place where survival depends on endurance, not protection. The people around him aren't immune to this. They've just learned to live with it. If you were in his place, sitting in that same room, eating that same meal, your experience would likely follow the same path. At first, relief. Then confusion. Then the realization that something isn't right. And unlike the people of that time, you would recognize it immediately. Your body would reject it. Strongly. Because everything about your environment today has changed what your body expects from food. Clean water, regulated production, controlled storage. Remove those protections, and suddenly, something as simple as a meal becomes unpredictable again. Daniel tries to stand. The room tilts slightly. He steadies himself, unsure if it's the ale, the exhaustion, or something else entirely. But deep down, there's a growing awareness. Something inside him is reacting in a way he can't control. And that's the reality of this world. Control is limited. Understanding is incomplete. And survival often comes down to how much your body can endure. Now think about that for a moment. Not just the discomfort, not just the risk, but the routine of it. Every day, people return to places like this. They ate, they drank, they lived their lives within this system. Not because it was safe, but because it was all they had. And over time, that became normal. The dangers faded into the background, even as they continued to shape outcomes in ways no one fully understood. Daniel eventually makes his way toward the door, each step heavier than the last. Outside, the air feels colder, sharper, but clearer. He takes a breath, trying to steady himself. Behind him, the alehouse continues as if nothing has changed. Because for everyone else inside, nothing has. But for him, everything has shifted. The simple act of eating has revealed a world where survival isn't guaranteed, where every meal carries a risk that modern life has almost completely erased. And that's the truth about why you couldn't survive the food of a 1100s English alehouse. It's not just about poor ingredients or lack of knowledge. It's about the gap between their world and yours. A gap shaped by centuries of change. Your body expects safety. Their world never promised it. So if you found yourself back there, in that same room, with that same meal in front of you, the outcome wouldn't depend on how strong you are. It would depend on how much your body could tolerate before it reached its limit. And for most people today, that limit would come much sooner than they expect. So now the question becomes even more personal. Knowing what you know, seeing what Daniel experienced, would you still take that first bite? Before we end, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos.